Hello there, and welcome to today's Back to Basics. I am Rico Burton, and I volunteer with AARP Arizona. Now, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 plus and older to choose how they live as they age. Now, nationwide, there are over 38 million AARP members, and here in Arizona, over 900,000 of those. So, AARP works to strengthen communities and helps us with what matters most to families: health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. This month in June, we're going to finalize our little series here on healthy eating, and we're going to talk about healthy dinners. And then in our next episode, we're going to talk about mental health. So please make sure you stay tuned today and that you join us next time. The country just continues to find itself in an onslaught of trials, tribulations, and so many tragedies. And it's a blessing to have AARP here with us to help us to navigate with things about stress management and healthy eating and healthy living, so that we can be the best that we can be as we have to find our way through all of this and live our best lives. So, AARP does help many people develop and maintain healthy living. You can find our resources online, and the URL is going to come across the screen for you to press on and visit us. So, we're going to be joined now by Coach SheriAnne, and we're going to talk about healthy dinners. Hi there, Coach SheriAnne. How are you?
Hi, Lady B. I am good. I am good. We're in the full swing of summer here in Arizona. So, as you tune in, please let us know where you're tuning in from. I always love to see where people are tuning in from. And I'm always a little envious because we're already hitting triple digits here, but it's all good. We're used to it. At least I am. Been here for long enough. But yeah, so definitely tune in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So yeah, so healthy dinners. We did breakfast, we did lunch, and now we're to dinners. And like I said before, and you corrected me, Lady B, it was so wonderful. I was like, because I used to say, eat like, do breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Well, now it's breakfast like a queen,
You.
and lunch like a princess, and dinner like a pauperess.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Thank you. You had given us so many wonderful tips. I cannot wait to hear what you have for us today.
Well, like I've always said, and I continue to say, there's some of the themes that I always keep true to, and that's, eat to live, don't live to eat. And most of us are emotional eaters, and that's okay. Don't deny that, but just understand your relationship with food and make sure that you're eating food to survive. And so that'll help you look at your food a little differently. The other theme that I always say is eat the rainbow. Try to have as much color as you can in your meals as possible, because that helps you ensure that you're getting your vitamins and minerals and appropriate nutrients. So by the time we get around to dinner, if you've eaten your breakfast appropriately, your lunch, your dinner doesn't need to be super big. And I always recommend eating dinner 3 hours before you're going to go to bed, at least. And that's why the reason for that is to allow it to get into its full digestion process so it doesn't disrupt your sleep. Because if you have food in your stomach and at the beginning stages of digestion, there's a lot of energy that goes to that rather than to helping your body do what it needs to do when it's sleeping, which is repairing itself, helping your brain reset. So make sure that you're eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed. And the more you eat, the farther away from going to bed that you eat, the better off you are. Because even as we age, we still create human growth hormone. It just gets less and less as we age. But if your body is busy digesting food while you're sleeping, it's not going to do that human growth hormone, which we still want because that's what helps us stay youthful. So that's another reason why to eat early. All right, so I did do a nice array. I have a vegetarian dish, and I have a fish dish. So let's just dive right on in. We'll start with our vegetarian one. This one actually, I tried it a while ago, and I experiment with food, and I encourage everyone to experiment with food. Try different recipes. This one was an experiment a while ago, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but it ended up being a huge favorite, not only with my kids, but with my entire family, because it's so easy to make. And I call them zucchini boats. So what you do is you just take a zucchini, cut it in half, core out the middle of it so it looks like a boat. I don't cook the zucchini ahead of time, but the inside, what I'll tell you is in it, I do cook that ahead of time. And then I dress the zucchini with my topping, which I'll get to, and then sprinkle it with cheese and then put it in the oven and at 350. And I just kind of watch it and I'll poke the zucchini with a fork because I don't like mushy zucchini. So I don't overcook it. I kind of undercook it and I just do it enough to melt the cheese on top. So, and the other thing too with your meals is make sure you have all three of your macros, your macronutrients, which is your fat, your protein, and your carbs. And carbs will always get in there. So make sure you're focusing on getting enough fat and enough protein. So this is a vegetarian dish. And the reason is because there's no meat in here. So what I cook is I cook onions, and I love cast iron skillets. So mostly everything gets cooked in cast iron skillets. So the inside is onions, rice, like a wild rice, black beans, chopped tomatoes, and these are actually fire roasted tomatoes I chose this time, and then corn and green chilies and some seasoning. So it's kind of like and I'll put all these recipes on the Facebook. We'll create a blog post for you all to be able to have the recipes. But this one, I just experiment with the insides. I always make sure I have a bean and a grain because that makes sure that I get all my amino acids so that I can have a full protein because there's no meat in this. So I always start with a whole grain, and a bean, and then I just add other things that I want to have in there. And so this is a yummy one. This became a huge favorite, and it's so easy to make.
Now, do you have anything else with that, or is that the complete dinner?
That's it right here. If you want to put a little green salad with it, you can, which we tend to do here a lot. We always have salad almost every dinner there's a salad. And sometimes the kids will eat in it. Sometimes they don't eat the salad. I always do just because I love greens. I can't get enough greens. But yeah, so you have your vegetable. I mean, so this could be a complete dinner all in itself.
Okay.
So that's my one and only vegetarian dish for dinner.
Now, before we go further, I know that we're supposed to eat to live and not live to eat. But, however, howsomever, I guess I'll say, part of what, culturally speaking, we like to get together with family and friends. And so it becomes a thing to have dinner when you sit around the table with everybody. And so it's a wonderful kind of thing. How do I eat to live and do what I just said to you too?
You can still eat to live and have a communal experience with your family and your friends. It's important to actually have a communal experience when you're eating because in that process, you can still have a relationship with your food and know that you are eating to live and not living to eat. Living to eat is when people become too emotionally connected to their food and they're just living to go get something that they're craving or desiring. It's okay to have that every now and again, but just don't let that be the standard. But no, it's very important to have, communion when you're eating. You eat with friends. And if you are eating single, if you are living by yourself, and I think we've even covered this before, try to get on a Zoom with a friend or a family member while you're eating so that you're not by yourself. But if that's not possible, you can still sit down and have a relationship with your food and know that it's sustaining you. But did that answer your question, Lady B?
You probably did, but there's just something that's, I don't know, when you say eat to live, it sounds like that I have to disconnect it. So thank you for helping me to connect that back because, even with, you talk about us eating emotionally. When I taste something and it's good, I want to say,
oh yeah.
And there's an emotional component to that instead of this is good, this is for my body. And I don't want to be robotic about it. I want it to taste good. And I want to, in my mouth and the textures and all of that. And I don't know, am I making myself too emotional, too connected to the food when I do that? Or may I still do that, please?
No, you absolutely should do that because if you're enjoying it, then yes, your body's going to get more out of it. The difference in eating to live and living to eat is not having a connection with your food in the sense of knowing that it is sustaining you, and so what you're talking about is actually really, really healthy and actually very good for you. So
good.
Yeah. So enjoy your food.
Thank you. Mhm. All right. I feel better now. Thank you.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad I could help. Okay, so the next one, I won't be able to tip it too much just because it's a stew. Well, actually, let me see. We'll see how much I can tip it. So I'm just putting a towel here in case so I don't pour it out on the floor. But this is a chicken, it's a Mexican chicken chili stew that I make. It's gonna pour out on the floor.
Don't hold it then.
So, but what I do is this is so easy. So I do it in an Instapot because I love my Instapot. And so I put chicken in the bottom of it. Then I put in onions, celery, carrots, black beans, corn, uh, and a jar of my favorite Herdez salsa. And then I put in 2 cups of broth. You can do a chicken broth or a vegetable broth, whichever you prefer. And then it cooks for, I think I put it on for 25 minutes. And then when I let it go ahead and decompress itself, because it's a pressure cooker. And then when I pull the chicken out, I shred it with 2 forks, throw it back in, and it's done. It is one of the easiest meals, and it makes wonderful leftovers. And then when I serve it, you couldn't really tell because it was hard to tip, but I'll take a picture of it and it'll all be on the blog anyway. But I top it with avocado, some sour cream, some cheese, and some good old tortilla chips because I like tortilla chips.
Nice. Very good.
But this one is so, so easy, and you can make a bunch of it, and it keeps so well. You can either freeze it or portion it out so that you can have it for, a few meals. Because I know if some people are cooking for just 1 or 2 people, it's sometimes a little more challenging, but there's definitely lots of recipes out there that will help facilitate you being able to cook for 1 or 2 people. But if you do cook in bulk, just freeze it.
Okay.
But a lot of the stew, when I make stew, I end up giving it to family, like my parents or my brother. Or I'm like, I made stew, and then it gets portioned out.
Everybody runs over for it, huh?
Yeah, because it's just so easy. I mean, it's one of the easiest ones, and you can even throw it in there earlier in the day if you're using a slow cooker and let it just cook all day. Slow cookers used to be very, very popular until the Instapot came out, and then the Instapot changed everything.
Right.
I love the Instapot. So, but yeah, that's a staple that we usually make on a consistent basis. I don't make a lot of soup or stew in the summertime just because of the heat. That's more of a fall, but it's an easy one to do. So another staple that I always have cooked in my fridge, because I have teenage boys, so I always have ground beef cooked in the fridge, ready to go so that it can be added to whatever. Sometimes it's just it was regular seasoning, and sometimes it's like taco meat seasoning. And so this is taco meat. This is a taco salad. So this one right here, you can see a lot of color. Eat the rainbow, like I always say. So this is a mixed greens. I have some radishes, cucumbers, bell peppers, carrots, tomatoes, and some ground beef that I've had cooked in taco seasoning. Top it with some avocado just to get a little extra fat in there. And I love avocados. Top it with a salad dressing or your favorite salsa, and you're good to go. So this is another easy one that you can make up ahead of time, and you can sprinkle some cheese on it. You can add some tortilla chips to this as well. So this is, and you can make the salad as big or as small as you want, but try to get as many colorful vegetables in there as you can.
Now, are all of those vegetables raw?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So, and that. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So, and even with the zucchinis, like I don't overcook it because as you cook, the nutrients, in vegetables actually kind of dissipates. So you want to try to eat raw as much as you can, or blanched, or not super cooked. Like with broccoli, like we just blanch it. I mean, like really, really quick steam on it, just to take the edge of the crunchiness off.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't. Soggy broccoli doesn't do well here.
Okay.
But yeah, so and I like the crunch of vegetables. So whenever I make salads whenever my family gets together, I'm always in charge of making the salad because I make it super colorful, and I chop the vegetables up, usually not huge, but on a nice size. So it's a kind of a chunky salad. But that's just because I like the crunch.
Okay. So we've got crunch, we have vegetarian, and and a stew. You're just
Mhm.
kind of all over the place. This is wonderful. Nice variety, which is good.
I think it's important to have some variety when you're eating, only because, I mean, I'm pretty much the same for breakfast and lunch all the time, but dinner is where I have my variety. And that's where we kind of play with it. And now that I have three teenagers, one of them takes a dinner each night. And
Okay.
so it provides them an opportunity to start playing with recipes and cooking for the family and whatnot. And I think that's so important. Like if you have kids or grandkids in your home, really involve them in the process of cooking. And so cooking, it awakens all five senses. And so
Right.
it really makes you very aware. So if you're preparing your own food, you become that much more connected to it. But it does awaken all your five senses because you get to see it, you get to smell it, you're touching it, you're going to taste it, and as you're cooking, you get to hear it. So it awakens all five senses. And so if you involve, with family members cooking, it just makes it that much better.
Which is why it's emotional. That's,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. If I hear a song I like that makes you want to dance, if you
Yes.
smell something, it's like, right? And so that's why I'm saying there's this attachment that we have to food, and you've explained it based on our senses, which makes a lot of sense to me now too. And
Yeah.
so I am going to continue to enjoy every morsel, no matter what it is, because to taste it. And I like many times like my fruit, watermelon. I like it room temperature so I can taste it, right? And so and so it's just not cold and going down, or oranges or whatever. And so you explaining it that way, that it's sense oriented, is really, really helpful. So thank you for that. I don't mind now saying, this is good.
No, you
Okay,
shouldn't. Like it's totally fine. It's so
wonderful.
because so most of the stuff was able to prepare yesterday, but the next dish I'll show you, I actually had to cook this morning. So I cooked it this morning, and as I was walking down the stairs, I was like, oh, it smells so good.
All right, all right.
So, and that dish is a popular one in my house. It's salmon. And so we do wild caught salmon. We don't do any farm raised fish in this house, just because we don't like the practices that happen in farm raised fish. So this is wild caught salmon, and this is a mixed grain. It's got bulgur and wild rice and some quinoa. So it's a grain, a full grain it's so funny because like sometimes this can be uh, not very it can be dry and not very tasty, but if you cook it right and cook it with some seasoning, some garlic, and even put some citrus like a lemon even in the rice, it makes it taste so much better because it can be a little dry and not as exciting. um, and the reason the asparagus looks the way it does, kind of darker, is because I actually cooked the salmon and the asparagus in the cast iron skillet in the oven with some butter, seasoning, and lemon juice, and so it kind of cooks it really well done, almost chars the edges of it. And it makes it taste so good. Otherwise, we steam the asparagus. Um, but salmon is a popular fish in this house. It's pretty much the only fish I think we eat. I
It
can't
is
think of anything else.
wonderful. Now, why should we not have farm raised fish?
Uh,
Or
that's definitely one of those things that can be a touchy subject. I just don't like how unless I know the practices of where it's being farm raised, if they're not recirculating the water appropriately, these fish are swimming around in their own feces. And so I just don't like farm raised fish.
okie
So,
dokie. And
and
that's that.
yeah, I just like wild caught fish.
Well, and we
If
know
I
that
live in
there's a difference. We see it at the market all the time, farm raised versus the other one. And so it makes sense for us to understand why we should have wild caught versus something else.
Right. And it's just a personal preference. It's one of those things where uh, people choose not to eat meat, because they don't like the practices of how cows are treated or chickens are treated. So it's just one of those things. Yeah. So, I mean, I still eat fish. I just prefer wild caught. If I could catch it myself, I would, but I don't.
I'm not trying to catch anything, but I do like wild caught as well. It's so interesting. Giovanna Judge is on the line, and she's from New York, I guess it is, one of the tribes out there. And she says she's taught her 6-year-old niece to be very, very mindful of what she eats. And when she puts the food in her mouth, she wants her to ask the taste buds What is the sense that you're getting? Right? That's kind of cool.
That's awesome. You should
Yeah.
teach her that the tongue has different areas. Like the sides is where we do the salt. The tip is where we have the sugar sensory, and in the middle, like so, each parts of your tongue, the taste buds do have different sensories.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
oh yeah, it's fascinating. So yeah, the different parts of the tongue will pick up different things in food. So
Huh. So what's happening in the middle? Anything of the
I
tongue?
can't remember. I just remember sugar was on the tip, which makes sense because it's like, you know, licking a lollipop or whatever. But yeah,
Sure.
your tongue is designed like to have pick up different. So that's great, Giovanna. I love that.
Now,
That's
let me go back to this salmon that you just showed us.
Mhm.
Can I do like a raspberry chipotle sauce or anything on it, or do I just need to
Oh
keep it?
no, definitely.
Okay.
Like so, sometimes I'll make a pesto butter. I just didn't have the
Mm,
time for that, but I'll put a pesto butter on top of it, so it's like really buttery.
okay.
But it keeps salmon super moist, and that's how I like it. Uh, but yeah, you can put anything. With sauces, it's just moderation. That's really all it is. Don't deprive yourself.
Wonderful. And I shan't.
No, you should not.
Yeah. All right.
So, and the important thing about recognizing with food too is food, like when we talk about living to eat and not eating to live, the purpose of food is to keep you nourished, and drinking water and staying hydrated. Because if we're not taking care of our bodies and nourishing it appropriately, all kinds of things can happen. I mean, we're going to have fatigue set in. We don't cope well. I'm sure you've heard of I use the phrase here in my house, hangry. Like, so if that's usually if someone bites at someone, I'm like, are you hangry? Like, do we need to eat? Because if you're not nourishing your body, your coping skills aren't as good. You don't manage stress as well. You're fighting fatigue, and your focus just isn't there. And so it's really important to understand why we're eating. And so that's why I say, eat, to live, appropriately in the sense of just making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Because there's so many people too that just go so hard all day long, and
Right.
and they don't pause to eat and nourish their bodies, and they get to dinner and they're just ravenous, and they come home and they'll just eat whatever.
For people working their way through weight maintenance or something, is it okay to have your heavier meal at lunch, or
Sure,
does
I
it?
mean, that's totally fine. I mean, if you want your heavier meal later in the day for your dinner, just make sure you're eating it. If you're having a heavy meal at dinner, I would say 4 hours. Like, just make sure you're having it in plenty enough time to allow your body to get through its digestion process, and not completely, but at least get it out of your stomach and into your intestines before you're in bed. Um, but yeah, lunch is a fine time. I mean, if you want to wake up and you're exercising and you're just going to have enough breakfast to sustain you to get to lunch, and then have a big lunch and then have a light dinner, that's totally fine. Really, it works. It's whatever works for your schedule and your ability to maintain eating healthy. But some people will just skip all day, and they get to dinner and they get home and they'll grab whatever they can, or they're getting fast food on the way home, or they're just ordering Uber Eats. And so it's important to prepare your food as much as possible, because then you know what's in it.
Well, I'll tell you, you brought up that salmon. I have made a salmon, asparagus, and spinach, and with cheese and mushrooms omelet before for breakfast.
Yes.
And I can do that too. I'm sometimes think
Totally.
people ask, can I have what's dinner food for breakfast if I want
Totally.
to? Okay.
And vice versa. You can make an omelet for dinner if you want, so there's no, I think that when people are like, that's a breakfast food. It's like, it's just food. That's all it is. Like, so yeah, you can absolutely, I mean, there was one time where we had pancakes for dinner, because it was just something fun to do and something different. And when you have three teenagers that, 3 nights out of the week, they're making dinner choices,
Right.
you get all kinds of things. But yeah, no, it's totally fine. Like if you had like the salmon for tonight's dinner and you didn't eat all of it, then yeah, throw it into an omelet with some, like you said, spinach, asparagus, mushrooms, whatever you want. I mean, the beauty of omelets is you can
You can do whatever you want.
put in whatever you want, whatever you want. So the last dish before we run out of time This is probably one of my daughter's favorite dishes, and it is stuffed bell peppers. So, and I do have a little side salad here, mixed greens with just some carrots on top because you have a half a bell pepper right here that you're going to eat. And this is not vegetarian. It's ground beef, rice, cheese, some parsley in there just for prettiness. I say cheese, and it's all mixed ahead of time. Then you have the bell peppers and clean them out. Put them in each one, lay them in a big pan, and then sprinkle cheese on top and cook them. And I cook these for about 40 minutes. And this is a really popular, easy one that you can also make ahead of time. It reheats super easy. And this is kind of like almost like comfort food, just because I don't know, it's the kids look at it like that. They love the inside. I mean, my daughter eats the bell pepper. The boys will take like a couple of bites of the bell pepper and they're like, no.
I was going to ask about that. Is there a pungent taste or something? Is a bell pepper sweet? What does it end up tasting like for people?
I think it's sweet, like especially the colored, like the red, yellows, oranges. The green ones tend to be not as sweet, but it's for my boys. It's the texture. So they just don't like the texture of cooked bell peppers. They'll eat bell peppers on salad all day long, raw bell peppers. They just don't like the texture of the cooked ones. My youngest is the most texture sensitive kid out of all three of mine. And it's interesting. So yeah, there's some things where he's like, yep, I can't do it.
Wow.
And that's totally fine. But like here, I mean, this is, you got your colors in here. We got your fats, your protein, your carbs. And I don't mind that he doesn't want to eat the bell pepper. That's fine because he's getting a little salad on the side with it. But yeah, my daughter will plow through those. So
I notice, and we've had this conversation before, that rarely, if ever, is there any bread on your plate. Can I just get a garlic, piece of a garlic stick or a Texas toast or something? Or David Killer Dave
yes,
or somebody.
I know we're so funny because I've asked my kids, and because I don't do a lot of my grains are like wild rice, the bulgur, the like hearty grains that get mixed in with different things. And I've offered stuff before, like when they were little, I would make rice, for them, or noodles. But even when we do spaghetti, they don't even eat a lot of noodles. But if I make spaghetti squash, like they'll do the spaghetti squash too. So I mean, even as of late, I was like, so you guys want me to make some rice or noodles or bread or some carb? And they're like, no. Okay. So I think that they've just kind of conditioned because of how I am and how I eat. But I just don't do a lot of breads. I don't know why. I just haven't always been a bread person.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, obviously. No, it's just, but I know you're so cute. You're like, can I just have a biscuit? Like, yes.
Piece of cornbread or something, especially with a Southern dish. I just feel like, I want something like we talked about the black-eyed peas and candied yams and cornbread, somebody, or, something with it. So very interesting. And a soup bowl, if you're going to have that with, soup and then
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I crunch up all these tortilla chips on it. That's, there's my bread.
Okay. So you do get a little bit of bread, don't you?
Yeah, it sneaks in there for sure. Yeah, but we just have never, I mean, even my youngest, he doesn't really like sandwiches. He doesn't like bread. Okay. He'll roll up some lunch meat and cheese all day long, but put it on a piece of bread. He's like, yeah, no, it's all right.
And that's because you taught them that coming up. That's absolutely wonderful, I suppose.
It's just a lifestyle. That's really
all it is. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches coming up. Come on now.
Oh, now that I do like peanut butter. And I usually do peanut butter and honey sometimes. Put some banana on there. It's really good.
Okay. Well.
But did we have any questions that came in that we missed or anything like that, or before we close out?
I've certainly checked to see whether or not we had any, and we didn't. So I do want to say thank you again for being with us today and sharing all the wonderful information that you have. Everyone, make sure that you take a look on the website. She's going to share those recipes with us, and you'll get some pictures along with it. And the next time we're together, we're going to talk about mental health. And it's going to be a wonderful time. We're going to talk about mental health, no science, no stigma. So make sure you come and bring any questions that you might have. And we're going to go over all of those. Thanks so much for being here. Until next time, God bless. Take care.
Thank you.